welcome to the DME podcast, brought to you by DME, the podcast booking platform. Whether you're a podcaster or an aspiring guest, the DME app is the perfect platform for you to get booked and manage your podcast bookings. I'm your host, Sukhay, the founder of DME, and on this podcast we'll be discussing the latest news and views in tech, the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, and even dipping our toes into the adrenaline-filled world of mixed martial arts. The podcast is back, and this week we're focusing on our hometown of Birmingham as we speak with Harris Beider. Harris is the founder of the Forward Institute, a not-for-profit startup looking to transform a once great city. He shares his journey from growing up in Bordesley Green to teaching at Columbia and Cambridge universities. We discuss Harris's powerful insights on leadership, collaboration, and the building of the future city. We explore Birmingham's rich cultural heritage and how it can inspire a much-needed renewal. This is a positive and forward-thinking episode, so please enjoy Harris Beider.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, great. Sorry it's taken us a while to get you on. It's all my fault, so I will fully take the responsibility for that one. But just wanted to obviously have you on the podcast because I think, as we previously explained, on the DME podcast, we're big fans of Birmingham, being a Birmingham-based startup and being a proud Bury myself. Always happy and proud to kind of present and represent Birmingham-based people who are doing good things and interesting things. And when I came across the Forward Institute, which you started, I thought, fantastic. It sounds like an amazing idea. And it sounds like something we'd happily discuss on the podcast. So do you mind just giving yourself a quick introduction to our audience, to yourself and your own background?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Harris Beider. And actually, Beider is not the proper surname, because when I was born in Karachi in Pakistan, and I came here when I was 2 years old, and in advance of that, like many families from the subcontinent and other parts of the world coming into the UK, my father came to the UK in the 1960s, and he changed his name from Syed Badruddin to Beider. So people think when they meet me that I'm German, but I'm not German at all. I'm a British Pakistani, and I'm really proud of that. So, born in Karachi, grew up in inner city, Birmingham, Borsal Heath mostly. Went to school in the Druidsheath estate in Maypole, where I was one of 3 non-white kids in a rough, tough comprehensive, actually. So lots of fights and lots of violence during the playground, lots of racism too, during the 1970s and 80s. But those kids became my lifelong friends, and my interest later, when I was an academic in inverted commas, of doing research around white working class communities, came from there, because I've never accepted the fact that white working class communities are supporters of the far right uniformly. All grew up and raised in Birmingham, and been away, come back in various roles I've had, but back here now. I've always lived in mostly Borsal Heath. Now live in Kings Heath. So very much part of the city, but raised me, and there's a good connection there between the subcontinent, migration, success, challenges, racism, and moving forward.
Yeah, so you mentioned your travels. I think you've worked kind of across the globe, really, at some of the established institutions. I think Columbia and Cambridge are on your CV.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Look, when I was growing up, going to school at Maple Comprehensive in the Druidsheath estate, I never thought I'd end up being affiliated to Cambridge University and then teaching at Columbia University. That was never on the cards. Like, I would never thought I'd be a professor. So it just shows you that life can throw up surprises. So the interesting thing about New York City is I've been going back and forth there for like 20 plus years and whatever. It's an amazing place. And the Columbia gig came about because I used to know the woman who was the housing commissioner of New York City, and she used to teach at Columbia, right, and the School of International Public Affairs, and there's a professor at Columbia University called Esther Fuchs, who's this amazing Jewish American woman, grew up in Queens. She either loves you or she hates you, right? And this is quite relevant to the story of how I got my gig at Columbia. So we met on Columbus Avenue, which for those who know New York City and Manhattan is very close to Central Park, in Sarah Beth's, which is like a sort of eatery there. And it was me, Geraldine Perrine, and Esther Fuchs. And Geraldine reached over to Esther and said, "Look, why don't you just give this guy a job?" And Esther said, "I'm trying, for God's sake, to do it." So anyway, to cut a long story short, she created an opportunity where I became a visiting professor at the School of International Public Affairs, teaching race and racism and urban policy and politics. And so she's been instrumental in my career. It's a fantastic time living on the Upper West Side, teaching at Columbia University. It's this big global elite university. And I really felt part of that community. Amazing students, worked really, really hard. And then they invited me again in 2016. I was nominated for the Presidential Teaching Prize at Columbia. And so Columbia in New York has always been part of my life, right? And Cambridge University is, I know I've been going back and forth to Cambridge a bit for a while, and then St. Edmund's College. I had a connection with St. Edmund's College in Cambridge, and they invited me to become a Beider Fellow, which, apart from having the opportunity to go to these dinners every Tuesday and Friday, which I didn't do that often because, like, Birmingham's a long way from Cambridge. It's for those people who've been to those dinners, it's quite an occasion. But yeah, so I was a Beider Fellow for a year, and then I'm affiliated to Cambridge. So very fortunate, right place, right time. And then if you have an opportunity, those in life opportunities don't come around again, so you need to grasp them, and you need to demonstrate. You need to work hard. And I'm very fortunate for having those two opportunities. Yeah, they're great.
Okay, so amazing backstory. So how did your kind of experiences in kind of teaching, traveling the globe, how did they shape your vision for the Forward Institute? And could you explain what the Forward Institute is and how you can
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you've had the privilege of going to amazing spaces and places and institutions and meeting like different communities. I've done research in the UK on white working class communities. I've done research in the United States around communities from all sorts of different backgrounds. And the one thing that really struck me was that wherever you are in the world, people, like ordinary people, have the same challenges that face them. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their kids if they have kids. They're worried about the housing, where they're going to have enough money paycheck to paycheck, and all sorts of family things, right? So people are no different. It's just that the systems where people live in are different. The sense of governance, the politics around it. And in the States, in Europe, and I've been to Japan a few times as well. What I found when I was going into the States at a time when it was during sort of Barack Obama's first ascent into being the presidency, there's a real role for like think tanks, organizations who would pump out ideas, to create challenge, to cajole, to put inform policy and practice. All right, all in different places in different cities. And I thought, you know what, that's quite interesting for me in terms of what is now the Forward Institute Building the Future City. But I didn't want the Forward Institute just to be a think tank. I want it to be an ideas factory. And I think there's a difference there between talking about stuff and doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I want to do stuff. I don't want to just talk about it. And then this is how it happened, the Forward Institute. This is how it was born. It's a true story. So where I'm talking to you now is in my dining room in Kingseed, right? And it's a sort of greyish day, a bit of sun. And in April this year, when I decided I wanted to leave Birmingham City University, and I was exiting from that role, it was just me, my laptop, and a rainy day in Kingseed, right, on a Sunday. And I thought to myself, it's me, and I need to put my ideas down into tapping through this screen. And 2 hours later, the Forward Institute was born. Yeah. The Forward Institute, forward because on every road sign in Birmingham, forward is the motto. The Institute, because I want to give this vibe that it's something that sparks ideas.
Sure.
Building the future city, because I want people to come together, cross-sectoral, collaborative, to to take Birmingham. The mission is from a city in crisis to a model of national renewal, invoking the past of Cadbury and Chamberlain, who had that civic gospel, to push forward, to use that cross-collaborative, independent, not-for-profit, non-party political, but insurgent, and holding organizations to account and just cajoling. So this idea of an ideas factory that pumps out ideas that can be used in terms of policy and practice and grand challenges and solutions. So I did all that. And then I showed it to the biggest and most critical audience, which is my family. I thought, what do you think of this? And they said, my kids said, oh, that's great, Dad, you should go for it. And then I went out just with this 3-page concept paper to people who I knew who would give me a very honest feedback. And the forward issue could have fallen down because they could have said it was rubbish and whatever. But luckily, a couple of people thought it was a great idea. Nicola Turner from United by 22 is the chief executive of the Commonwealth Games Legacy Organisation, and Pete Richmond from Born Brothers Trust. They really supported it from the start. And that's how it kicked off. And now it's gone way beyond I conceived it, way beyond.
That's a fantastic origin story. And I kind of really like the...
It is a truth, yeah.
I know there is when it comes to startups and new ideas, there is normally some creative thinking around or explanations how things came to be. But now that sounds kind of really organic, and it sounds true to the heart of what Birmingham is, and it's from a Brummie, and it really inspiring, I think. But what I really liked about it, because obviously I read your paper and I thought, yeah, love this, was the fact that you're tying it into the history of Birmingham.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember from my school days, I never kind of knew the history of Birmingham. I was 9-10 years old or whatever, and I think, what about it? Maybe a geography lesson that we had. Obviously, you're born and brought up in Handsworth, and one of the teachers says, "Do you know that Soho Road was kind of the centre of the world back in the 1850s?" We were like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" I kind of explained the whole Industrial Revolution, and Matthew Bolton, James Watt, Murdoch was it? I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, it was.
And he kind of explained the Soho House and the Lunar Society. I was like, we were the centre of the world. So I think for the last 40 years, I've been parroting that story to anybody who would listen.
and it's a great story that Birmingham heritage is really important, but only if it informs the current and the future. So Birmingham, as you said, is Birmingham in 1890, and this is on the website, the Forward website, is that in 1890, an article was published in Harper's Magazine in New York saying that Birmingham was the best governed city in the world, right? And Alexander de Tocqueville, the famous American philosopher, back in the 1850s, said, basically, his book that he published then, he said, I've seen the future of cities, and it's Birmingham, right? So, but take it forward 140 years from that article in Harper's Magazine, we have a city, even the biggest supporter of Birmingham can't say that we're in a crisis situation at the moment, right?
Yeah.
But the solution to me is invoking that spirit of the past that created the first great city to build the future city as a modern, progressive, diverse city, successful.
Yeah.
Cross-collaborative, private, public sector, third sector, focus on grand challenges, practical solutions. This idea is fact. Doesn't matter if you fail, right? Doesn't matter if you fail. But we can fail 5 times, but the 6th time we make a great big leap forward. And this idea of rapid prototyping, so fast, rapid prototyping, that sense of industry, moving quickly. And so I think that spirit of the past to inform the present and then the future. People get the story. People sort of linked to it. And I think that's one of the essences that I want to say is that we've been a great city in the past. We can be a great city in the future.
Yeah. So I think this is where we might not wait a little bit, but I might challenge your ideas a little bit. The rapid prototyping, I kind of love. And for me, my own biases are kind of free markets and entrepreneurialism, as opposed to kind of centralized control and top-down driven ideas, which kind of I don't think work. And harking back to the history of Birmingham, one of the other kind of PowerPoint. It's kind of a famous statistic that Birmingham's got more miles of canal than Venice. And he said, well, why has it got more miles of canal? Well, because we needed to build it to transport the goods that the raw materials in, and then the engineered goods and transport them out. Fine. And then you kind of dig deeper into the facts of, well, who built those? It wasn't the government that built them. It wasn't the local council that built them. It was independent entrepreneurs that built them because they needed to, right? And they put the investment in the city and in the infrastructure because they could benefit from it.
Yeah.
Now, my challenge to you would be, and we kind of talked about public and private sector partnerships, is that possible in this day and age where kind of governments are a hell of a lot bigger than they ever have been, both local and national?
It's a really interesting point you made, because there is a view that the public sector has become bloated, right? And it's bureaucratic, it's resistant to change, everything's very slow on it. And obviously, we can't hang around. We need to move quickly because we need to address the crisis. One of the things that I would say to you in response is that I've met great people in the public sector, really great leaders who are very committed, both in the council and other places and spaces in Birmingham. I think that, look, there's not one institution that's going to sort this out. So we need to come together, be collaborative, put our egos on one side, and work together. The public sector, Birmingham City Council is changed because the situation it's in. It has more of a facilitative role rather than a driving role. And that enables other actors like the private sector, like the third sector, organizations like Forward, to participate and engage in terms of supporting a common mission. So I think one of the interesting things about Forward is that one of the most significant take-up and the spark of it was the private sector. Because the private sector was frustrated. It wanted to do stuff, and in terms of renewal of Birmingham, it wanted to help to make the public domain more attractive. It wanted to get inward investment in. So the private sector, as you know, wants things to happen quickly. And I think one of the things they saw in Forward is this thing about rapid prototyping. So that not hanging around for 2 years or 3 years, like universities are great institutions, but one of the problems around university research is that you spend 6 months on developing a proposal, then send it up to get some funding, that'll be another 6 months, and then have a project that's like 2 years, up to 2 years. By that time, the world's changed.
Exactly.
So you're investigating something that is not relevant anymore. And I didn't want Forward to be like that rapid prototype in 6 months and thinking, let's just test it, learn, fail, have impact on it.
And in all fairness, my experience has been in the corporate world for the last 10, 15, 20 years nearly. And our large organizations in the private sector will follow that same bureaucratic process when it comes to new initiatives. They'll go through the same levels of bureaucracy in terms of, right, well, what's the cost benefit? Go away and do this. And you're talking 6-12 months later before you get a specific project or program approved. And again, the world has moved on. And then at the end of you'll say, well, why do we get the same benefits? Well, because you didn't move quick enough and things change. You didn't adapt quickly enough.
But there was another point that you raised that was quite interesting in your original question, which is about this top-down, like command and control management. Now, I'm sure you and I and all the listeners, I have this thing that I sort of play out is who are the best line managers that I had, ever, that gave me autonomy and supported me and took a risk, and who were the worst line managers who were like top down controlling, squeezed innovation out. And it's pretty similar actually, but that top down command and control style of leadership that you get not just in the public sector and at universities, but you also get it in large private sector organizations. It's absolute kryptonite to innovation and autonomy and change, right? So I definitely do not want Forward to have that sort of that management. It's a very flat structure. Everyone's invited. I never think I'm the smartest person in the room. If there's other people who can do it better and faster, go ahead and do it, right? On it. But I think we do need to get away, if we want to build a future city and make Birmingham really successful as being progressive, modern, getting in with investment in, we need to get away from this toxic, top-down, command and control style of management that actually afflicts many institutions.
It certainly does, yeah.
Many institutions.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily it is an institutional problem, but I think if you boil it down, it's kind of a human one in terms of it plays upon people's worst fears, which is failure, right? So they're more of a fear of failure. So it's going to be a cultural change that needs to happen, a change in mindset, which is rather than looking at what happens if I fail, what happens if I win and succeed.
Well, that's a really smart point, because if you look at councils, hospitals, the wider health service, universities, housing, they all have to report within a regulatory framework. Okay. So actually the space they have for innovation and change is limited. They can't take too much of a risk because they don't want to be punished on it.
Yeah.
But I can get that. But sometimes, leaders, and I've been a leader in different roles in higher education and elsewhere. You've got to just go for it on the best information that you have. I remember one of my VCs, Madeline Atkins at Coventry University, saying to me is, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. So you're never going to have a perfect solution.
Absolutely.
So just go for it. If it's like 8% there, let's go for it. And if it fails, it fails. But what do you learn from failure? And that top-down controlling leadership, we need to strip that away, because it's not about it's not the leadership that will deliver innovation and change and enterprise on it. And that top-down type of culture that you spoke about gets in the way of collaboration and partnership. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you very much, it needs the right leadership who are brave enough to go empower people. Go try it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Rather than be afraid of failure. So just talking to the Forward Institute, then, I know you've got a number of initiatives, rapid prototyping we've already spoke about, but you've also got things like Everyday Brum on there as well, which kind of sounds like a bit of a love letter to the city. Could you use one?
I love that description that you get. You know what? I love that description. When I go out and promote that as a project, get some investment, I'm going to say that this came from you. This came from you, not me. The thing about Everyday Brum is that, look, Birmingham has always been in the epicenter of the politics of race in this country, right? Mm-hmm. From way back when, from the 1968 speech by Enoch Powell, the Rivers of Blood speech that was made in Birmingham, to the rise of the National Front in the 1970s and 80s. I mean, you're from Handsworth, so you'll remember that half of the Hawthorns, West Bromwich Albion, ground is in Birmingham in Handsworth. So obviously West Bromwich Albion is a football team. One of the most significant periods for history when they had Laurie Cunningham, Brendan Batson and Cyril Regis in their team.
3 degrees.
3 degrees. And they had awful abuse that came down from the terraces as black players. And so Birmingham, from Powell to the rise of the National Front to the riots in Handsworth and elsewhere in 1981, 85, the rise of Islamophobia, and what we've had now in terms of in Wheelie Castle, the movement in terms of raising flags, Birmingham's always been part of it. So Everyday Brum it's a love letter to the city, but also it's a love letter to the people in the city, the everyday people. It doesn't matter if you're from Sharding, Wheelie Castle, Handsworth, Sparkbrook, Streets Heath, Moseley, King's Heath, Harbord, wherever. What are the everyday things that give you an affinity to the city? What you have, the possessions. And the idea about that storytelling is it binds people together around this city. Yeah. So the city brings us together. The people in the city have an affinity to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They may hate it. They may like it. They may, and it changes it almost like on a daily basis. But this is our city. And it shows that irrespective of where you live, who you are, in terms of your ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, there there's overlaps between us. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sort of daily struggles of life and what we like about the city in terms of, there's loads of things that people like about city. What we don't like about city binds us together.
Yeah.
And so therefore the binding is really important, the overlapping, because it builds this sense of unity. And then the people who are trying to fragment the city, whoever they are, become the minority. Yeah. So it's a silent majority, everyday bump, that people think this is my city.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think
yeah.
from a cultural perspective, I think Birmingham's got a lot to shout out for in terms
Absolutely.
of that diverse background, because it wasn't, if you go back to kind of the music of the 80s and Bangor music take off, you go to the 70s, you got the Black Sabbath, and the 80s you had kind of UB40 kicking in, and Duran Duran. I think physically from the guys themselves aren't from Birmingham, but I think they founded and kind of spent a lot of their early career in Birmingham. So you've got all these musical and cultural aspects, and then you kind of come into the 90s and you got a global cuisine, which is kind of founded in Birmingham, based off kind of South Asian roots, etc. And that's kind of the perfect example of a mix of cultures clashing and actually combining things to actually make something greater.
You know, the thing is, you're absolutely right. So that meshing of different cultures, different identities coming together to give us that sort of authentic identity of what Birmingham is, as this diversity in the proper sense of it, because diversity culturally, but diversity in terms of ideas, entrepreneurism, creativity, the buzz that you said, you know, and music. I love music. So from industrial metal, that Black Sabbath and Aston, to UB40, Morsel Heath, Mosley. They actually, UB40 was, when I was growing up, and going to FE college, you used to be able to claim like some dole money. If you that dole office in on Ulster Road in Moseley was the same one that members of UB40 went to. So, and Duran, and you talk about cuisine. It's absolutely fantastic in terms of the offer, and we need to crystallize that, and crystallize and catalyze that for promoting and benefiting the city.
Yeah, I think we've got to leverage as we have our selling points to the wider world. I think we spoke about kind of the next gen leaders is kind of an initiative that you got. I mean, spoke a little bit about leadership, but what are you trying to?
What we're trying to achieve there is, look, the challenges of any city are sometimes down to structures and sometimes down to individuals in leadership positions, right? And part of next gen leadership is to expand the pipeline of people who live in Birmingham who want to play a role. And I think the Forward Institute, the values are there: collaborative, working together to drive the city forward. So Next Gen is trying to develop a program which enables individuals from that pipeline, from community to organization to leadership. They get supported and encouraged, meet with each other. And it's not about like just promoting people who want to go into political representation at all. It's about each sector, like the private sector, the public sector, the not-for-profit sector, promoting this next generation of leaders who are bound to Birmingham through their values, who want to use their skills and capability to come together to deliver the change that's required, the progressive change. Because a city that doesn't have this cohesive, unified leadership is a city that's going to find it very difficult to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of ties in perfectly with your kind of next initiative, Brum Talks and the annual Chamberlain Lectures.
Yeah.
I love the idea of conversation and people collaborating with ideas, and get the idea of fireside chats, I think they call them, in Silicon Valley, and they're quite fond of those. I thought, well, actually, what could we have the equivalent in Birmingham would be kind of canal side talks, right?
I love that idea. Let's go for it. Let's speak to people on it. You know, think about those radical series of talks is that we trialed it actually with Arab in July this year, and we had people from different sectors, from the cultural sector, from the private sector, public, and so on and so forth with a panel. And what people loved about it was, it was like, where next for Birmingham? The question was, what people loved about it was obviously the engagement and discussions, but the opportunity to meet people that they wouldn't otherwise meet from different sectors, right? So there was this eclectic group there, which is very representative of what Forward wants to do, this convening role. So the fireside chats of Brum Talks is getting people from different backgrounds. It could be, I don't know, it could be a restaurateur from Birmingham, right? It can talk about their life and their career in Birmingham, and they're running a Michelin star restaurant, right? And you know who I'm talking about. But there's lots of people like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be about like politics or public policy and stuff. It could be someone who's like a professional footballer who grew up in a city. What does Birmingham mean? So they did it in Birmingham. They were made in Birmingham. So what did Birmingham do to you? And the idea is to get these interesting, eclectic people to talk about their lives and share ideas for success from their perspective, which is different to if you go to a standard conference or event. You know the type we're talking about.
Sure.
Rows of seats, usually a man pontificating on it, and sort of really deadly boring. So I wanted to change that dynamic and that intimate sort of space and bring people together on it. And the Chamberlain lecture just kept and stumbled on Chamberlain because, obviously it's a key figure in Birmingham's emergence 100 plus years ago. It's modelled on the BBC Reef lectures, right?
Right. Okay.
And it's thinking about, let's talk about a big societal challenge that impacts on people. And let's get someone that if you and I went to the street, they'll know who they are, right?
Yeah.
And it's getting, because then you attract the media attention. I think everyone comes to Birmingham, right, to hear this person or people talk. And that's the ambition that I want for it. And there's that's what it's me, that the people that they're only like 2 or 3 steps away from you.
Exactly.
Someone's
6 degrees of separation, I think.
Yeah. And it's like, I'll tell you a little story about the Reef lectures. Is that I asked someone the other day, who's the most famous person that you know, right? And he was thinking. And I said to him, okay, I'll tell you the most famous person I know directly or indirectly. Indirectly bit is important. He said, who do you know? I said, indirectly, directly. I said, I know Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He said, really? You know Barack Obama? Yeah. I know Barack Obama. I've never met him, but someone that I know has been an Obama fellow, right?
Yeah.
And she's engaged with Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. So it's not who I know directly; it's who someone else knows. He said, "Do you think Barack Obama will come to Birmingham?" I said, "Probably not, but he may do a video talk, to it, and isn't that a good thing to have?" Yeah.
You just got me thinking there. I think I've got Donald Trump by 2 degrees. So
have you?
Yeah. Maybe I can get on the podcast. What do you think?
I think it'll be interesting what reception he gets in Birmingham.
I don't know. Let's see. Let's tell you what. We'll start a petition, see if we can make it happen. Not sure why.
Yeah. Let's see what happens on that one.
Right. Just some closing thoughts, then, Harris. Just one question I had. So we talked about cuisine a little bit and how tamed you are. If you could pick one dish that best represents the city of Birmingham, what would that be for you?
That's a really tough question. Listen, so when I was growing up in Moseley, there used to be this chip shop called the Kingfisher that was owned by a Greek Cypriot couple, right? And the woman very much wore the trousers in that relationship. So I would say really great fish and chips in Birmingham are fantastic. And obviously, coming from a Pakistani background, I would say like curry. I would say, show me a better place to get samosa than Millen's on Stony Lane. On it. So And this is what I'm cheating a bit here. So this is my third response to you on food. So when I was growing up in Borsley Moseley, the first time I had Caribbean food, like jerk chicken, rice and peas, was when I was 5 years old. I went to the Pottinger family and it was smelling really nice. I said to my friend Gifford Pottinger, "What's that cooking?" This is like 5 or 6 years old. He said, "Oh, that's jerk chicken and stuff like that." I'll have some of that. Said Caribbean food has always been one of my favorites as well.
So it's funny that you said, oh, sorry, I'm going to go on another story here. So it's funny you mentioned fish and chips, right? And for years, because when we grew up, we used to live in an extended house. So when I was really small, like 4 or 5 years old, and it used to, the Friday afternoon routine would be the dad and my uncles would get chips for the kids and the wives, etc. Start off out to the pub for the weekend. You wouldn't see them again. So it's the fish and chips Fridays, right? So and I thought that was kind of an Asian ethnic thing. Then you can't grow up, you speak to other people, like your white friends, and I never did the same thing. And then I kind of registered with me that it was a working class thing.
And it was a common experience, right?
Exactly. Everybody had that, regardless of race. It was a working class. Whether it was I'm sure it existed in other cities. Well, maybe not as much in other cities, because if we go to speaking to friends in London, etc., around kind of West London, a lot of them worked in Heathrow Airport, etc.
Yeah.
The culture is different there because so many people work on the weekends in shifts, so they don't have the same. Not everybody's off on the same time, but kind of Birmingham, the Midlands, everybody work Monday to Friday. Kind of finish early a little bit on a Friday because they do 10-hour days Monday to Thursday.
And it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting said about fish and chips and stuff. So my local chip shop is Dad's Lane Fish and Chips on Dad's Lane in Kingsea. You go there and it's an interesting ethnographic experience because there's all sorts of different people that go there, right? And all wanting the same thing, they experience of having it and then eating their fish and chips when they're still hot. So it's a unifying experience, right?
Right. If anything, we're going to make a roaring trade for the local Birmingham chippies. Everyone's going to be hungry listening to this. So, finally, Harris, if our audience want to learn more about the Forward Institute, where can they go and where can they support it, more importantly?
So, listen, it's a startup. It's doing amazingly well. Go to www.forwardinstitute.co.uk. There's a QR code that you can donate. I want this to be driven by crowdfunding and support. We've made some amazing progress after 5 months. If you want to be part of it, just go there. All the details are there, and get in touch. I'll come back to you.
Awesome. Well, we'll include all the links and relevant support links in the description of the podcast. But Harris Beider, thank you very much for appearing on the DME podcast.
It's been a complete pleasure. I've loved it. Thank you very much.